Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Podcast of Champions. I'm your host, Lord Deathman, and today we've assembled a battle-tested panel of champions to discuss the MCU's Phase 4. We're going to take a look back at the releases that have already come out, and we're also going to take a look ahead towards some upcoming releases. But before we get started, please do me a favor and take a second to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the content that we'll be putting out in the weeks ahead. Moon Knight is right around the corner. She-Hulk is on the way. The Secret Invasion is about to kick off, and we'll be covering it all right here on the POC. Also, if you're enjoying the discussion, hit that like button. And if you don't like what you're hearing, I'm told the other button works too, so that's fine. Either way, sound off in the comments to let us know your thoughts on Phase 4 and the discussion in general. So without any further ado, let's take a moment to meet today's fighters. In the arena today, we have the veteran of the games, the Grandmaster himself, presiding over everything. Tell us how you're doing today.
Hello, everybody. I'm doing great.
You ready to talk some? Yep. You're looking forward to the Phase 4 discussion?
Absolutely.
I knew you would be.
Yeah.
New to the arena. We have a brand new champion joining the discussion, or at least I think you're brand new, Rob. But please tell the folks how you're doing today and how you feel about talking about MCU Phase 4.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. I'm really looking forward to it.
We have another new champion joining us as well today. His name is Alex. He is on voice only, but we're still looking forward to hearing everything he has to say. How are you doing today, Alex? And how are you feeling about talking about Marvel Phase 4?
Good, man. Thanks for inviting me, guys. I'm excited. I mean, this is what I do, so let's get after it.
All right. Yeah, let us do that for sure. And last but not least, we've got another veteran champion also on audio only today. So a couple of shy folks, including myself. But our veteran champion, last but certainly not least, is Arch Stanton here. And tell everyone how you're doing today and how you're feeling about talking Phase 4.
Guys, I am super excited. I'm sorry I've been missing out on a couple of the reviews and everything, but it's always good to talk to you guys. And I'm going to see if I can fix this audio only thing. We'll see if I can get in on video in a little bit here.
Okay.
I'll back that up. Yeah, sorry about the camera. I'm trying to get it to work.
All right. We've got a dog race, a horse race here in terms of who's going to get their camera on first.
That's actually my line from Ragnarok. Anyway.
All right, guys. Great to have everybody here. I just want to thank the panel for joining. And so the focus, guys, out there in fandom land today is we're going to be talking Phase 4 of the MCU. We're going to do a little scorecard with the panelists today. We're going to look at the upcoming films because Phase 4 is still in progress. And we're also going to be talking about a little something that's a little bit close to my heart in terms of a discussion about spoiler culture. How the spoiler industrial complex has sort of changed the game with the genre in terms of superhero films. But before we get to all of that, in many ways, it feels like Phase 4 has been going on forever, but at the same time, it feels like it's just getting started. It's easily one of Marvel's most experimental phases in terms of storylines and plot points. We've seen Marvel take on slightly more overt political messaging in this phase. They're making good on their promises of inclusion and diversity. And we're even getting some, immortal beings doing the deed in the great outdoors in one of the feature films here, doing the nasty. So, the MCU is kind of growing up with Phase 4. We've got the introduction of streaming shows. They've been injected into the conversation for Phase 4. And we've reached some stunning heights with this phase, like with Spiderman No Way Home reaching $18 billion at the box office and becoming the #2 domestic grossing film of all time. We've also reached some abysmal lows in this particular phase with the polarizing Eternals, which netted the MCU its first Rotten Tomato. So there's a lot going on with Phase 4. We're 4 films in, and I think we're 5 television streaming shows in. So I want to turn to our first panelist here, the Grandmaster, to start talking about our scorecard for Phase 4. I want to see, is this phase reminiscent to you of any other phases that came before? Does it feel completely different? Just to give you a reminder, Grandmaster, before you start in with your answer, and for the rest of the panel too, we've had Black Widow this phase. We kicked it off with Black Widow. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings followed. We got Eternals, and then most recently we got Spider-Man No Way Home. But that's only the beginning of the buffet. On streaming, we've had WandaVision this phase, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, What If, and Hawkeye. So we've gotten a ton of content mixed across a couple of different channels. But how are you feeling so far overall about the entire offering of Phase 4?
It's a bit of a mixed bag. Great heights, as you say. Personally, for me, Eternals is the best movie Marvel has made. Personal feeling. But you also have stuff like What If and Spider-Man No Way Home, which were, disappointments for me. And I actually didn't experience disappointments in the MCU up until then. So, yeah, the last 6 months were not so great for me in the MCU.
So you're feeling like your scorecard is that things are kind of rocky with Phase 4 so far.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Far.
Yeah,
we're gonna jump back to you for future releases, but I want to get to Rob, our next champion on the panel. What do you agree with the Grandmaster? What's your take on Phase 4 so far?
Not particularly, but I think that comes because when Phase 4, basically at the end of Endgame, for me it was very much about, okay, can the MCU still grab me after all this? Like, am I still excited about what the MCU has to offer? And from that point of view, Phase 4 has positively surprised me, to be honest. I think the diversity in the stories it's telling has grabbed my attention more than I thought it would be, like Shang-Chi, Eternals, but also the streaming services have all been better than I expected. So I guess you could point at some faults in No Way Home, for example, which I think has some problems, but in general, it's been better than I thought it would have been. I'm quite positive about the Phase 4 and the direction we're going.
Great. So you're undaunted by the sort of growing pains that some people are saying that we're having with Phase 4. You feeling like it's a part of the process and we're still moving in a positive direction with the franchise?
Yeah, I think so. There are definitely some growing pains, as I think there was also in Phase 1, when they start laying out the new plans. And I think the plans for Phase 4 will go on between 5 and 6. So those growing pains are still there when they're trying to lay out a new story. But, they're all experienced now, everyone involved, from Kevin Feige to all the way down. So I have lots of faith that they'll sort all that out.
Yeah. If anything, when we look towards upcoming releases, we're going to see that there's a lot of potential on the board to make history yet again with the MCU. But I want to turn to Alex now and sort of get your take. What is your feeling on the opening salvo of Phase 4? Was it a mistake to get into streaming? Are they stretching themselves a little too far? Do you feel like they're offering the same diversity of content? Are you still excited? But what's your take, Alex?
I'd say overall, Phase 4 has been good. I think while it is essentially a restart and it being like a new Phase 1, I think it fits more into like the Phase 2 category. So that's when they started kind of going a little further. It just wasn't plain origin stories. We're kind of developing a little further now, adding new, myths and stories and such like that. So I think in that aspect, it's been great. I think the movies so far have honestly been pretty good. I've been a fan of all of them. I haven't been a fan of all the shows, and I've kind of been, I've spoken out about that, where I think the shows truly are capped at a certain limit. So I don't think we can ever reach the full potential that the movies have. But other than that, I think it's, so far been good.
Well, when you say capped, do you feel like they're just kind of nerfed because they're on streaming, and is it the Disneyfication of it? What in particular is limited with the shows?
I think the only thing Disney limits really is the PG-13 element, which I think we're kind of moving out of soon. I'm more so talking about the stakes in the shows are never going to be as high as in the movies.
Right.
And I say that because like we'll never have, Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye will never die in his own show. It'll always be in a movie, right? So you kind of go into the shows already knowing some levels or, don't expect the movie, I guess is what you can say. Temper your expectations a little bit and kind of just, enjoy what's, being given to you.
I kind of see what you're saying. It feels like they need to save some of the big surprises to get us into the theaters, because that's still the premium space, the large screen. That's still where, the elite storytelling takes place. Thank you for that answer, Alex. I want to turn now to Stanton, a veteran of the panel here, and sort of get your scorecard. Where do you feel Phase 4 is strong? Where do you feel it's weak? Do you have anything to sort of follow on with any of the other panelists' comments?
Yeah, I was just thinking of what Alex just said there, and I agree, but I'm gonna take it from like a little bit of a different angle, because he's right. But I think there's also a strength in that as well. Like I think the shows offer a great chance to get further into the characters as well. So while there's like a bit of a trade-off, I guess is what I'm saying. So if you're looking for maybe big, epic, world-changing moments, maybe those don't exist in the shows, but I think you do get a lot of like more insightful character development in there. So
I like that. I agree.
Right. So it's a little give or take possibly, but I think my so far take on their introduction of streaming is that it opens up just a wider world. A couple of years ago I was defining it as like the shows feel like if you got like a series, like a limited series, or like a subscription, and you're watching that character's subscription if you were into comics, and the movies feel like the event films, like the big payoff sort of limited series that you might get in comics. So like I think they're doing well with that, and I also think it offers a wider diversity of not just the characters we're seeing, but the types of stories. So to what Grandmaster was saying a minute ago, like he's felt, a little disappointed with some of them, but I think that's okay, because I think that they're offering, you can follow these if you want, or you can follow these if you want. You don't necessarily feel the need to watch everything. If this group of shows is your thing, cool. You don't have to like love everything necessarily. They're offering more for everybody, I believe. So I think they're doing a really good job with that overall.
Yeah, it's like event runs and solo runs, I guess you could say.
Right.
Split, yeah.
It does. And I take to heart what you're saying, Stanton, about not being so much led down a maze with the cheese being laid out for you in that place. And, you have to kind of follow that particular path. Now you can kind of branch out to any kind of corner of this MCU that feels interesting to you. Right. And I don't think, you're the less for it in terms of the overall narrative. But quick lightning round here in terms of questions. Grandmaster, was Black Widow the right way to start this phase off?
When it comes to movies, yeah, sure. Why not? It is a safe way to start. I mean, the fans have been begging for a Black Widow movie for years, and we finally got that. And it showed that Marvel is no longer confined to straightforward storytelling. They can go back in time and go anywhere. They can do prequels, they can do sequels, they can do whatever they want. So Black Widow showed that, and I think they are using Phase 4. What we had so far is mainly changing the roster. Character introduction, and Black Widow needs to be replaced. ScarJo is too expensive, so
but so Black Widow didn't feel like a stutter step before we really started Phase 4 with Shang-Chi.
Yeah, for me, Phase 4 started with WandaVision, so Phase 4 was well on its way for me when Black Widow came around. So I had no problem with it.
That is fair. Robert, did Eternals deserve the hate? No. Polarizing film there. No. And I go to you with that specifically because you expressed some admiration for the film. What do you think they went wrong with it? Or was it just not going to be that film that everybody was going to love?
I don't think it was going to be that type of film. I think they took a bit more of a serious tone, if you will. Like there was still some of that MCU humor in there, but less than the other films. But to me, it didn't deserve all the hate. I saw it quite late. I didn't see it in the cinema. I saw it when it came out on Disney Plus. So perhaps it helped that I kind of came in with low expectation due to all the hate it was getting. But I think it told an interesting story. It introduced some cool new elements to the MCU. Cinematography was amazing. It was really good.
Beautiful.
So no, I don't think it deserved all the hate. I personally, for me, I don't think it was like the height of the MCU. Like it wouldn't hit my top 5, but it was a good movie. They tried some new things, introduced some new cool elements that they can take in some cool directions. So yeah.
All right, fair enough. You got a little bit of love from another fan in the upper right-hand corner if everyone's screen is laid out the same way as mine. But yeah, jumping to Stanton, Spider-Man No Way Home, masterpiece of the genre, or didn't really live up to the hype for you?
I love that people love it.
That's a nice diplomatic answer.
You went to me this one on purpose, didn't you?
I did.
I think it had to be made. I think and this is the only time that could be made, and Marvel Studios is the only studio I would honestly trust to make it. I think it does what people loved about it. It sums up what the Spider-Man film series has been about. It's pays homage to the comic book genre on film in general. So I think that's all great. Personally, I just don't find any of that particularly necessary. I don't really care. I don't them showing up doesn't mean anything to me. And when I say it doesn't mean anything to me, I don't mean from like the comic book genre perspective. I get that. Like it'd be great. I just don't think it does anything for the MCU. Like we've already established variants. We've already established that there's multiverses.
Right.
Toby and Andrew showing up doesn't change any of that. Like we already know all that. So I don't think it really does anything there. So it didn't have the impact on me that it does for a lot of people, but if it doesn't ruin anything either. Like there's nothing wrong with it. It just didn't have the impact that so many people obviously feel from it. And I'm glad that everybody who does feel from like a lot from it feels that way. I just don't. So
right.
Yeah,
and I can totally see your point of view. I mean, I think there is a middle ground between people who are saying this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and other folks who feel like this is like the most cynical, nostalgia-ridden cash grab that could have ever happened. There's probably a middle ground in the discussion there.
I don't think it's that. I don't think it's just a cash grab or anything. Like I said, I think it's necessary. I felt it. I do really feel like it needed to be made. Like to get those guys together, it could really only happen now, and I think they did a really good job with what they produced. So I'll leave it at that.
Right. And you know what? Regardless of how you or I feel about it, the numbers don't lie. $1.8 billion. So whether they got you in there with a genuinely good MCU yarn or a nostalgia fest or however they did it, the glory of the MCU continues to rise. And Sony, despite the train wreck of a marketing campaign that they laid out for the fans. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in the spoiler culture section of the show here. But great to get that perspective from you. Thank you, Stanton. And then turning to Alex for the last question in the lightning round. What stood out to you in Phase 4 amongst streaming, and what was just like the most fun, exhilarating, exciting corner of the MCU to visit so far in Phase 4?
Loki. I think that's
good answer.
I'll say, yeah, I think Loki and Shang-Chi, the way they added, the probably what we're going to get in the sequel, like the 7 cities, that kind of mythology, the mystical aspects. I think that combined with Kang the Conqueror, everything they're doing, going into the cosmic side of the universe, really excites me. And it used to be where, I loved Winter Soldier, and I still love that movie, one of my favorites. But I think moving forward, this is kind of the path they really should go.
Yeah, it did feel like, and I'm putting myself out there by saying that Loki is just a masterpiece of speculative science fiction and fantasy. I mean, you could really have put it up there against some of the really heavy-hitting sci-fi shows that are on TV today. There's just something so extraordinary and unique about it. Hopes for season 2, Alex? or do you just want to come into the gate completely surprised?
You know what? I went into season 1, I really wasn't hyped for it at all. When it first got announced, I was like, do we need Loki? And then we got into it. I ended up loving it. So yeah, the director said she wanted to do one full complete story in season 1, which I think we definitely got. So I'm going to go into season 2 kind of expecting nothing, even though I know a little bit of me is expecting something. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. Guys who are listening, guys and gals who are listening out there in fandom land, you've heard it from the panel how we feel about the scorecard of MCU releases for Phase 4 that have already come out.